Welcome back to Passionately Catholic. I am Anthony Digmann. We are now entering a new era of media and technology in which we have even more empirical evidence showing how harmful these 21st century realities are for developing teens and, if we're honest, adults as well. Most of us have had an intuition that there's a problem with our media consumption. Something's just not right. About 4 years ago, a senior in one of my theology classes spontaneously shared that they wish they could go back to before they had a cell phone. They said that they were happier, life was simpler, their relationships were better. Most of the students in that class agreed. So I asked the rest of my classes of seniors throughout the day, and most of them agreed. I had an awareness that cell phones as well as one-to-one Chromebooks in our school were having negative effects on them because I saw the gradual change over 15 years of teaching. I was amazed though that seniors at least had a little bit of an awareness of the damage media was doing in their lives themselves. So I asked the next group of seniors, the next year, and even my current year, and most of them continue to agree. So I asked them, well, then why not just get rid of your cell phone? And the answer today is pretty much the same as it was 4 years ago. They just can't. So what are we learning from recent sociological data? Jonathan Haidt's 2024 bestseller, The Anxious Generation, is warning that teens are not the same today as decades past. They've been rewired by a shift from what he calls play-based childhood to a phone-based childhood. Key differences include adolescents being more distracted, anxious, depressed, emotionally isolated, addicted to technology and media, as well as spiritually and morally impoverished. They also can't focus for extended periods of time on challenging tasks. And this is heavily influenced by the social upheaval of more media and more technology, as well as fewer authentic relationships. Haidt has confirmed that many adolescents, and adults for that matter, have lost the ability to be fully present with the people around them. Jonathan Haidt's top 4 recommendations that he makes near the beginning of his book as well as the end of his book are: first, no smartphones before high school; 2, no social media before 16; 3rd, phone-free schools; and 4th, far more unsupervised play and childhood independence. These symptoms are something that I've witnessed as a gradual change in my classroom over the years as well. In my first few years of teaching, for example, almost 20 years ago, anytime students had a few free minutes at the end of class to talk or walk around, they would leap, sometimes literally, at the opportunity to socialize. They would move around the room to get closer to their friends, they would make direct eye contact, and the volume in the room would crescendo almost to a roar. So I had to make sure to quiet them down. But over the last few years, that hasn't happened so much. Back then, even walking through the hallways was a pleasant experience. You'd see students talking to each other, greeting one another. But over the last decade, there's been a gradual decline in their ability to interact socially and engage in interpersonal communication. Even as recently as just last school year, when students had a few minutes at the end of class, a lot of times they preferred to just sit at their desks and do something on their laptop. Sometimes it was productive like homework, but other times they were just messing around trying to find a game or watch a video. A major change occurred this year though in the state of Iowa where I teach. The state law changed to strictly limit cell phone use in schools, and this was heavily influenced by the new empirical data, including Jonathan Haidt's book. Our archdiocesan policies for Catholic schools followed suit, and thankfully this year, cell phones and smartwatches are not allowed during the entire instructional day, and they're even confiscated if seen. I cannot tell you what a benefit this has been, not only to limit distractions, but also misbehavior in the classroom. I've also noticed extremely positive things in student social interaction as well. For the first time in years, if they have a couple of extra free minutes at the end of class, they're jumping up again, ready to interact. 18 years ago, for example, playing a video in class was welcomed by students, but over the years, they don't like listening to videos. They're bored by it because it's nothing in comparison to the quick, flashy social media that they're used to. But this year, with the strict technology limits that we've put into place, their attention span seems to be lengthening again. They're starting to appreciate these illustrated videos again. In recent years, they could only think in short segments like TikTok videos rather than long-form attention activities like reading an article, much less a whole book. But this is improving as well, as they're getting better with non-media activities. Another major voice in this area is youth ministry specialist Chap Clark in his book, Hurt 2.0, which suggests adolescents have been abandoned by their parents, churches, and society. Desperate for relationships, but looking for it in artificial, shallow ways, teens turn to the ease of entertainment and media and technology. And Clark suggests we are a culture that has forgotten how to be together. We've lost the ability to spend unstructured downtime, he says. Clark confidently uses the term abandonment to describe teens' current situation. The way to address this is what he calls the adoption of youth by the entire faith community and incorporating them into the life of the church like a family with all its messiness. Similarly, a document from the U.S. bishops almost 50 years ago called A Vision of Youth Ministry says that youth have a right and a duty to be active participants in the work of the church in the world. Chap Clark's entire premise of the systematic abandonment of adolescents is rooted in adults losing sight of the teens in their lives, largely due to being engrossed in their own obsessions. This further perpetuates the distance teens feel from adults and the wider culture, exacerbating their tendency to isolate and use more media and technology. So how can we address this as those who love and serve teens? Practical areas include sharing with adolescents the damage of media and technology, as well as sharing the ways that we, ourselves as adults, moderate our media consumption. A couple of the ways I moderate my own media use on my phone are keeping it in one place of my house, using a gray screen, and locking down distracting apps using a new app called Shift. We can also encourage teens with inspirational stories like St. Carlo Acutis, a millennial saint who died at age 15 in 2006. St. Carlo set a strict limit for himself of playing video games for only 1 hour per week because he was intentional about saving time for more important things like prayer, relationships, and his other hobbies. He used technology well by cataloging the Eucharistic miracles of the world and was a recent inspiration in the US for the recent National Eucharistic Revival. Another way that we can model and encourage limited media and technology use is by making parish or diocesan youth events device-free zones. In my experience with teens, this is a welcome opportunity to be real with each other without having to use Be Real. If we are going to help adolescents experience liberation from technology and media, we also need to replace these things with something positive, nurturing, and fulfilling. One way to do this would be to help teens have more interpersonal communication, especially growing in their faith with other teens. To do this, we can combine ideas from several useful sources. Josef Pieper wrote an essay titled Leisure, the Basis of Culture in 1952, and it describes how important play, wonder, and carefree timelessness are for the development of authentic humanity. He argues that our culture turns people into cogs in a utilitarian work machine, which completely misses our inherent human calling and needs. Anthropologically, we are made in God's image and likeness and are made for community and spiritual union with God and others. Media and technology are stripping our ability to experience authentic leisure, and it's destroying our culture by attacking the essence of our humanity at the root. Second, and on a more practical level, Everett Fritz published The Art of Forming Young Disciples in 2018. He advocates the need for adolescents to be formed in teen small group environments with caring adults. This directly addresses the abandonment identified by Chap Clark. It also provides an opportunity for authentic discipleship modeled by Jesus Christ and passed down through the pedagogy of the church throughout 2 millennia. Such small groups can have opportunities for leisure, but also for spiritual enrichment and study. They can be places where caring adults and fellow adolescents can walk with each other through the 5 thresholds leading to intentional discipleship, as identified by Sherry Weddell in her internationally impactful book, Forming Intentional Disciples, which was originally published in 2012 and revised in 2022. Opportunities like this are already in place. For example, Dowling Catholic High School in Des Moines, Iowa has a small group discipleship program called Serva Fidem, which means in English, keep the faith, where teens gather weekly in a small group and are mentored by a vetted adult disciple. I've personally visited Dowling and witnessed the effectiveness of this program, which has grown to incorporate a large percentage of the student body population. Organizers testified that the program has had a revolutionary effect on the school culture. For parish youth ministry, another option is using a resource called Discipleship Quads, developed by Dr. Bob Rice of Franciscan University of Steubenville. This is a program that establishes small groups of 4. It can be done just for adults, or it can include 4 teens with 1 adult. Resources are free and available online. The evidence is getting clearer how negative media and technology are affecting adolescents as well as adults. Thankfully, there are also a wealth of resources and opportunities to alleviate the negative effects without throwing out all media and technology. We know that having the courage and discipline to make changes in our own lives and encouraging the teens in our lives to join us will make everyone happier and enrich our lives, relationships, and faith. Every era of Christian history has had its challenges and required sacrifices. At least giving up my phone is nothing compared to martyrdom. But for some teens, it may feel similar. May God abundantly bless us with His grace to overcome the idolatry of technology.